This is an NYY Sports Talk podcast, presented to you by Baseballism, a premium lifestyle apparel brand inspired by America's pastime. Baseballism is America's brand.
Now batting for the New York Yankees, the shortstop, number 2.
Welcome back. This is episode 105 of the NYYST podcast, presented to you by Baseballism.com. I'm your host, Christian. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Chris.
Yeah.
And it's that guy, Rye.
What up?
There's a dog barking in the background.
Yeah. You get distracted very easily, dude.
Well, I hear a dog
You're like
barking.
obsessed with dogs now. You buy one dog and you're obsessed.
Yeah,
How
are
am
you
I
a dog whisperer now?
Why am I obsessed with dogs?
You're obsessed with dogs. That's all you care about.
Why? Because last night I was trying to get you to adopt one?
You got me. They approved us. And then you know what? Okay. All right. Listen. I don't like pets. Okay.
Well,
I'm not saying I don't like animals. I don't like pets.
You like cats?
But I love my family, and my kids and my wife want a dog. So naturally I want one. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's this whole big thing when you apply to adopt a dog, because I'm not spending crazy money on a dog. I'll tell you that right now.
That's how you circumvent having to ask all these damn questions.
Right.
Is you spend the money on it.
But you apply for these things, and it's like, how tall is the fence in your backyard, and what is it made of, and what kind of a person are you? And it's just ridiculous.
You know
right?
what? You know the only question I had to answer when I got my dog? Would you be paying cash or certified check?
Right. And that's the question I want to hear, but not for that much money. So you go through this whole thing, right? And it's a big process. They called you, right? You had to lie and say I was a good person.
That I
deserve a dog. I know. I saw the video. Your wife recorded you and how uncomfortable you were.
I was.
Speaking nice words about me. But then we get it all. And one of the references, right? She calls us as well. She's like, yeah, I just talked to him. By the way, what adoption agency was that? And she's always adopted pets her whole life. And she goes, oh, that one? They are the worst. I promise you, they're terrible. We start looking into it. All their dogs are sick. Like, you get a dog from them, they die in 2 years.
Oh, great.
So now I'm not even getting a dog through there. Now I will be spending that kind of money.
Wow.
I'm really excited.
You should be.
Yeah, I'm very excited. I could have an animal shit and piss all over the house.
You train the dog not to do that.
I'm not training anything. I'm not walking it. I'm not feeding it. That will be the responsibility of my family.
Can I tell you something, right? In my house, and my in-laws, we live in a 2-family house. My in-laws live upstairs, and I live downstairs. My in-laws didn't want the friggin' dog. My wife didn't want the friggin' dog. I wanted a dog. It took me 3 years of being married to finally break down the wall and get this goddamn animal. And who does he love the most? Everybody that didn't want him. So your dog is gonna love you the most, and you're gonna love it the most.
I just got done telling my kids that I'm leaving. I'm leaving.
Where are you going?
Because I work all day. I come home. I'm a fun dad, right?
Fun dad.
You know?
Hashtag fun dad.
But everything
fun
fun or whatever that they want to do, it's always my wife. But when they, Jack needs his diaper changed, it's me. Or when he needs me to get up after I just got comfortable on the couch, it's me. You know what? You don't need me. I'll come around 2 times a week.
Look, I don't know what it's like to have children. You do. Maybe you get
the same
type
thing.
of gratification out of coming home and seeing your kid smile and give you a hug. I used to dread coming home at the end of the day because, I love my wife, but, it's we've been together for 13 years. It's like,
right,
whatever.
Right.
Now I got the dog. I'm excited to come home now. I can't wait to come home. The dog jumps up. He gets excited.
You're
take
in the
him
puppy love stage.
Oh, my God. It's amazing. Like now.
Wait till it ends.
It's that puppy love.
Right. Wait till it ends. It's just like with your wife.
No, I think
pretty soon you'll come home, you'll be frustrated from work, the dog is in between your legs, and
Creed,
you just want to
here.
relax, and you're telling the dog to go screw.
No, I will never speak to Creed like that. I will
Would
never
you speak to your wife that way?
Yeah, absolutely. I would tell her.
There you go. That's
I would
the type
not
of
tell
person
her to
you
go
are.
screw. I would say, listen, get out of here. Let me and the dog spend some time together.
Yeah.
We're going to watch the Yankee game, And that's the end of it. And I'm sure there's a new episode of Live PD on the DVR waiting for her anyway.
Maybe.
What we have waiting for you right now is we spend 5 minutes talking about how much Chris hates animals. So we'll segue into the reason why you're here and some Yankee baseball.
It's great.
And
We just lost another 1,000 listeners to the podcast. Thank you.
That's cool. Anyway, talk a little Yankee baseball here. Joe Rivera will spend the next 45 minutes with us just about breaking down the American League East.
I love breaking down the AL East with Joe. It's always a fun part of the...
Look, we'll let you listen to the interview. Joe's great because he doesn't cover the Yankees. He covers baseball. Right. So he's got a little bit more expansive view on, the American League. But basically here it is. The Orioles suck. The Blue Jays will suck, and then they'll be not as sucky once Vlad Guerrero and Bichette come up.
Right.
The Rays are the little engine that could suck, but they might not suck, but we don't know yet.
I think the Rays are going to be a thorn in everyone's side this year.
The Red Sox will be good in starting rotation. They'll be great in hitting, but their bullpen is trash.
It's non-existent.
And the Yankees right now are the best team on paper, but we don't have an ace.
Right, because we were dealing with some injury.
So we'll give you our thoughts on the Luis Severino injury, the new news on the Luis Severino injury after we get done with the Joe Rivera interview. So sit back and enjoy our AL East breakdown with Joe Rivera of the Sporting News.
And this interview with Joe Rivera is brought to you by Baseballism.
Honestly, being someone who played baseball my entire life, through high school, through college, I couldn't be more excited that I stumbled upon Baseballism.com. And it's not just as a former player or as a fan. They have things for women, for men, for kids. My wife fell in love with Baseballism.com. She was on the site for 2 minutes. They have an affordable product, honestly, high quality. They are my go-to online shop. Visit Baseballism.com. Be sure to use promo code NYYST for 15% off your entire order. Join the NYYST crew, folks, in sporting America's brand.
Chris Christian and Stat Guy Rye of the NYY Sports Talk podcast on with our good pal Joe Rivera of the Sporting News. Follow Joe on Twitter at Joe Rivera SN. Joe's joining us for our 2019 American League East preview. Joe, how you doing today?
Gentlemen, I'm doing very well, enjoying the warming of the weather here in beautiful New Jersey.
Beautiful New Jersey.
Full of strip malls and oil and petrochemical refinery.
Well, I took my headphones off for a second, and then I heard you say strip. I thought you were going to talk about strippers.
There's a bunch of those.
Well, if you watch a little bit of
think.
The Sopranos, then they got plenty of those too. So.
Bada bing.
North Jersey. I mean, I can throw a rock out my window. And hit a strip club.
I know the owner of the Bada Bing Strip Club. Literally, and
Wow.
I know him. I won't say his name. I won't reveal his name, but he owns about 5 of them.
That's cool. Nobody cares.
You're pretty much famous then, Chris.
I pretty much am. They're thinking about casting me for the movie.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
That's cool, man. Good job.
What's up, Joe? How are you, pal?
Yeah. I'm doing great, guys. I'm doing great.
Joe, let's jump into this. We're going to go down the line here, and I guess we'll go worst to not as worst in the American League here. The Orioles, how bad were they last year? And they still had guys like Manny Machado and Adam Jones and Zach Britton. They had all-star caliber players on their team last year, and they were still historically bad. How bad are they going to be this year?
Man, is it possible, and I think it very, very much is, that they could be worse than last year?
Yes.
And I think this is they're not going to crack 60 wins again. I don't think it's possible. I forget what their record was last year. I think they won 57, maybe.
Joe, you will be giving them 10 more wins than they actually had last year. 47 wins.
I know back. I know in like August.
Bad? Just listen, 47 and 115 losses.
Oh my God!
I know it was August, and I actually put a tweet out saying, "Is this team even going to hit 45 wins this year?" So Yeah, I mean, they hit 45 wins, and is it possible that they could be worse? I mean, are they a 45-win team this year? I think they are. A lot of people seem to forget, though, that the Orioles did go on a little bit of a run after they traded Machado, so that probably gave them a few more wins than they were actually worth last year. And now you're doing it without Adam Jones, without Machado, without Jonathan Scope. So it's yeah, I mean, that's as bad as it gets. And to be honest with you, they don't really have a future. They don't really have a future right now. They don't really have much to look forward to. Trey Mancini's probably their biggest young star. Chris Davis has been horrendous since he signed that deal. I don't really know what the Orioles are doing, where they go from here, but that's something that's going to take a long time to put together. I just don't see how they get good or get better anytime soon, especially when you couple that with the fact that they just haven't been able to develop starting pitching for how long now. So yeah, the Orioles are going to be atrocious. There's no other way around it. I mean, it's almost to a point now where you can't even laugh about how bad they are, because it's almost that embarrassing.
Well, I was going to ask you, that was my next question I wanted to ask you. Is there anything in their pipeline, somebody that the fans could see, and if you're an Orioles fan, to hang your hat on and say, hey, that's my Aaron Judge, that's my Mookie Betts, that's my Vlad Guerrero Jr.? They don't even have anybody like that?
I mean, they have the Inner Harbor, which is pretty nice during the summer.
That's the greatest part of Baltimore.
Barnes and Noble. Yeah, there's a nice Barnes and Noble there in the Inner Harbor, if that's still there. I really don't know, to be honest with you. I don't see anything on this team where, even the terrible teams, you can say, you look at, I mean, the Rays weren't bad last year, but, you could say, well, Snell's pitching, so you get to go see him, or, the White Sox are bad, but they have Yoel Moncada, so maybe you want to go see him. I can't look at the Orioles and say, yeah, this guy gets me excited. It's not happening. It's not happening. It's bad. They're in a bad spot. I think that they really miscalculated what they were going to be a few years ago. After that success, that string of success, I think they stuck with Buck Showalter a little too long. But yeah, I don't see anything redeeming about the Orioles. Maybe ticket prices. If you want to go take a nice weekend trip to see them play a team, an out-of-state team, a visiting team. That's about it, though. I don't really see.
Yeah,
I don't see what the redeeming factor of the Orioles is at all. And I really don't like trashing teams like that, to be honest with you. But yeah, I just don't see how this team is going to be any good.
Just look at their depth chart. Their depth chart it's a minor league team, pretty much what they're putting out there.
Yeah.
And Joe,
it is not good.
I don't want to spend the whole time with you on talking about the Orioles, because we could probably just go into this for hours about how miserable they truly are. But I want to pick your brain on something. Everyone sits here, right? The Red Sox could come back with the same exact team. Let's just assume they had the same bullpen, the same offense, the same everything. And you talk to 100 people and probably 95 of them are going to say they can't repeat what they did last year, right? That was just a magical season. Could that be the same sense of like a team like the Orioles? Like, you can't just be that bad again. Do you think they have the potential to win over 60 games? Like, on paper, obviously not, but I mean, could it be the same reverse effect?
You don't want to get existential about baseball, but baseball is magical for a reason sometimes, right?
You got to explain what existential means to Chris.
That's true. That is not a joke.
I mean, you look at a team like the Rays last year, who, you look at their depth chart, their rotation, it was Blake Snell and nobody else. They experimented with the opener and they still won 90 games last year. So, I mean, listen, if the Orioles go out and win 60 games this year, I think that's almost a success for them, to be honest with you. I just don't see, between the rotation, between their lineup, between their depth that they have, I don't see where they're going to get the wins from, especially with an improved Rays team, with the Yankees team that's probably a World Series favorite, with a Boston team that won 108 games last year, and with the Toronto team, I don't think they're going to be as bad as people might believe them to be. They're going to get young pretty quick if Vladimir Guerrero comes up. So after the injury, so yeah, it's going to be tough treading in that water to try and win even 50 games this year. I don't see where they get it from.
Well, to segue into the next shitty team in the American League East, let's talk about the Blue Jays a little bit here. I mean, the whole Vlad Guerrero thing, and I think we're talking about all these baseball rule changes, right? And some people are frustrated. Other people kind of are focusing their attention on the service time and that they need to adjust things like that for the players. This whole Vlad Guerrero Jr. thing before this injury, if you're a Blue Jays fan, you have to be absolutely outraged that this guy isn't going to start the season with the Major League Club. They kind of get off the hook here, with this oblique strain. Do you see him in the big leagues in 2019? Can he make an impact to the Blue Jays team? And what kind of noise are they making in the AL East this year?
Between Vlad, Bo Bichette, who's going to be coming up at some point, I think, in 2019 too. I think the Blue Jays are going to be better than people expect them to be. They did lose Marco Estrada. It's just the problem with baseball, man, with the service time rules. I know, and I think that's probably, again, to get existential, I think that's one of the problems with Major League Baseball and with the way that the internet has kind of given voice to the fans, is that fans think too much in line with owners and not enough as fans now. If you're a fan and you're defending a billionaire owner over a guy's service time and his free agency 6 years from now, rather than wanting to see him on the opening day roster, I think that's a major problem. And I saw a lot of that with Vlad Guerrero Jr., where fans were defending him going down. I mean, why does it care? Why does it matter? Don't you want to see the best players now? Don't you want to see a guy like Vlad Jr., who hit almost 400 last year?
Yeah, but Joe, just to the defense, and I agree with you there, but just to the fans' defense who do defend the owners, it's something that we, as fans, we can't change what the owners are doing, and we see the trend that they're going down. So I think a lot of it has to do with just being instilled in our brains now that if they don't keep him down, we might not see him in the future at that point. And I mean, I know a lot of people are just defending the owners to defend them, but I think a lot of it has to do with that too, that we just know we can't change this mindset now that these owners have, and they'd rather keep him for the long term than see him, get cut loose too early.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the rationale behind it. And I perfectly understand that. But at the same time, if you look at a team like the Blue Jays and we know Vlad's going to be up, it's not a question of if he's ready or not, right? I mean, what's the harm in putting him on the opening day roster? Because part of it is just owners and GMs saying, oh, well, he's got to go down to work on his defense, or he's got to go down to work at the plate. He's got to identify breaking balls more. It's all hogwash, right? It's all nonsense. It's poppycock. So to say to me that he needs that extra 2 weeks to work on taking ground balls or to learn to shag fly balls better, it's a farce, and that's what's hurting the game. I mean, and it's all across baseball with all the top prospects. I mean, there are some guys like Eloy Jimenez who's had a pretty bad spring who needs that extra time in the minors. But Vlad Guerrero, who hit almost 400 last year, he was raking at every level that he's been through in the minors. What's the harm of having him on the opening day roster, even if it means his free agency is pushed up a year? You can't worry about that at some point. You have to honor your fans a little bit. So. That's just where I stand on it. Again, I certainly understand the other side of it, where fans probably aren't going to change that mindset of the owners and just understanding the business side of it. But I also think that's harming baseball. Siding with billionaires over millionaires, I mean, it's a losing battle for the common fan, I guess. But it's hard for me to try and defend the Blue Jays keeping him down. Again, they got lucked out with that oblique injury, but it's hard for me to defend the Blue Jays keeping him down when it's very obvious that he's ready to hit and he's ready to play at the major league level.
Joe, you mentioned the Rays winning 90 games last year. They've made some improvements this offseason. Do you see them being a legitimate threat for the division this year? And outside of Blake Snell, really, who's the big player that we're watching for this year?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the Rays had one of the best off seasons in baseball this year. I really do. You bring in Charlie Morton for a two-year deal after he pitched so well with the Astros over the last few years. You bring in Avisail Garcia from Chicago, who, he's had an up and down career. He was highly touted coming up. You figure the Rays, sometimes they have a way of working that juju, man, and they have a way of kind of reinvigorating some guys' careers. And it's kind of like they're like Oakland A's East, right, where you don't expect these guys to have good seasons, and then they end up pulling out 90 wins like they did last year. So I don't think it's one guy. I think trading Bowers for Yandy Diaz in that 3-team trade, Yandy Diaz is a name to watch. Him getting consistent play time, you're going to learn a lot about him quick. He was the exit velocity king when he played with when he had playing time with Cleveland. So him getting extra at-bats, presumably going to be starting with the Rays. I think he's a guy to watch too. So yeah, Blake Snell, obviously everybody knows a Hale Cy Young guy, but I think the Rays are a team to watch out for. I'm not sure if they can win the division. Again, it really depends on their pitching top to bottom. It depends when Brent Honeywell comes up. One of their top prospects. He was spent last year recovering from Tommy John. I love Honeywell. I'm enamored with this kid. I saw him pitch in the Futures game a few years ago, and just his stuff, he is electric. He's probably next in line of these Rays pitchers who just kind of come out of nowhere and keep the line moving when it comes to aces. So, yeah, I think top to bottom, the Rays are going to be pretty good. I don't know if they're going to win the division. I think they're better suited this year to win the division than last year, but it's still going to be a tough task for them.
Well, who won the division last year was the Boston Red Sox, and they took that all the way into October and won the World Series. They had an historically good year, 108 wins. They lost 3 games in the postseason. We know how good they were. Didn't seem they made many improvements to their club in the offseason. They re-signed Nate Eovaldi, but when you're that good, do you really need to make many improvements? But the big question mark for them right now is their bullpen. I mean, Joe Kelly's up and down, but he was a good setup guy for them. He's in L.A. It doesn't seem like they're going to ever reach out to Craig Kimbrell, and as much as we may not like him, he's still a really good closer. Some people, I don't know what they're drinking, but some people will tell you he's better than Mariano Rivera, but that's a story for another day. We know that they can do different things and get creative once they get to October. But game 1 to game 162, with their bullpen as it is presently constituted, are they still going to be as good as they were last year? Can they win the division with the Yankees and Rays in it and the other teams in the American League East? Will they win enough games with the way their bullpen is set up right now?
I don't think so. But listen, the Red Sox had a season last year. Brandon Phillips was signed to a major league contract, and Brandon Phillips hit a walk-off home run for Boston in August last year. So that's just kind of the way things went. When Brandon Phillips is getting game-winning hits for you, everything's going right. I don't see everything going right for Boston again this year. It was one of those seasons where you keep saying to yourself, all right, well, they have to cool off, and then they just never did.
Never.
But without Kimbrell, without Joe Kelly, I think that hurts them a lot, because now you're looking at Ryan Brazier, Matt Barnes, no disrespect, but neither guy is Craig Kimbrell right now. So I'm not really sure what they're expecting to do to close out that bullpen. And with the rotation, you don't want to say questions, but David Price, what's he going to be? Chris Sale, he dealt with some shoulder issues last year. I don't know if that was just to get him rest for the postseason, or he was legitimately battling through injuries. So, yeah, there's some question marks there too. I don't think they're going to be an 108-win team again. I just don't see it, especially with the bullpen as it is right now. But who knows, really? They're like what they did in the postseason last year was like the anti-analytics. Everything that we're being told now, where strikeouts don't matter as much and home runs do. But this was a team that was focused on contact, which I think is still the way to go. I mean, I'm not in those rooms, but yeah, I don't see how Boston wins 108 games. I don't see how they win 100 games with their bullpen right now in a sport where that's so dominated by bullpens too. In top to bottom, you just look at the best teams and they have fantastic bullpens. So yeah, I don't see how they win 100 games again with the bullpen that they currently have. It's tough for me.
Well, you also got to think too. I mean, they were able to piece it all together, like you said, in October, and they made it work pretty well, obviously. But like, you got to imagine now, Chris Sale each and every year, in my opinion, he's the best lefty pitcher in baseball. But each and every year, we see this huge drop off from him, and we saw the Red Sox be a little more meticulous with his innings last year and really nurture him. You got to imagine that they're going to continue as he gets older year after year. that this year they're going to really want to monitor him. And again, they really don't have a bullpen to do it. That's where I just see the drop off of them in the regular season, at least.
To be honest with you, they might not care about his innings that much this year because he's a free agent.
Yeah, but they're going to want him in October. I mean, if he's hurt going into October, they have nobody.
This is true also, but they might not be as cautious because they might just be trying to blow through him this year and say, hey, you know what?
Maybe.
We're done with you at the end of the year.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't think that's unreasonable. It's Chris Sale's a guy that you just look at his mechanics, right? And you say to yourself, there's no way that he can last.
Right.
He's 7
then
foot
he does.
tall and he weighs like
does.
112 pounds too.
It's crazy.
Yeah, with a brick in his pocket soaking
And he
wet.
throws 100.
So, yeah, it's crazy. It really is. I mean, he's one of those, just between his mechanics and his physique, you don't see how he throws as hard as he does for as long as he does. But again, if those shoulder issues were legitimate last year, and I think you did see it, he wasn't really throwing in the high 90s throughout the postseason. He actually, a few of his starts, he was hovering around 92, 93. So, it's tough for me to see how Sale, or how the Red Sox really can rely on Sale. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but you look at his second half numbers throughout his career, and they're not as good as his first half numbers. And I think that matters, especially in a long season with a bullpen that's as suspect as Boston's. I think that really matters. I think that plays into it. Listen, it's not to discredit Sale because he's still a top 5 pitcher in the American League, right? And it's a lot of ifs and ands that go with it. But it gets to a point now where, you kind of have to be a little concerned with maybe what Sale gives you in August, in September. And especially, again, I don't want to keep harping on the shoulder, but if the shoulder was legit, if that was a problem for him last year, it's going to be interesting to see if he wears down again.
All right, we're joined here with Joe Rivera of the Sporting News. Now we're going to dive into the Yankees here because that's what everybody really is listening wants to hear us talk about.
And we do feel that they are built to win this division this year. We're not just being biased, but because of the holes that we just talked about in the Red Sox, we do think they're the best team in the AL East.
Well, now the Yankees have their own holes to fill because we knew about the injury, but now we hear word coming from Brian Cashman yesterday, as we're recording Saturday afternoon, that Luis Severino will be out at least until May 1st. As Yankee fans, how worried should we be over Sevy's injury right now?
And Joe, wait, before you answer, I don't mean to cut you off. Are they saying he's not going to start baseball activity until May 1st? Or they expect him back?
No, they expect him back by May 1st.
Which, AKA for the Yankees, means that's when he'll probably start his baseball activities, which is what scares me.
All right, so what the manager said yesterday means nothing.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, if I'm a Yankee fan, I'm very concerned. And it's not just because of Severino, but it's because of the rest of that rotation. I've been saying for years Tanaka's elbow was a ticking time bomb. We all know he's dealing with that partially torn UCL, so you never know with him. CC Sabathia, we've seen him with injury issues in the last few years, and he's not going to pump out 180 innings. You'll be lucky to get 150 or 160 out of him. James Paxton, who is great when he's healthy, but he's either healthy and good or he's hurt. There's really no in between, so that's another question mark. You go top to bottom. That's a lot of question marks in the rotation, and the Yankees did a really good job of kind of masking it by reinforcing the bullpen this offseason, making sure you bring back Zach Britton. Now I think that's huge for them. I thought that he deserved another run in pinstripes. He was up and down last year. He said himself he needed to get his legs underneath him. So you think a full season with the Yankees will probably help him out there. You bring in Adam Ottavino, I think that helps. But it's a question that's as old as time. Going back to prior 2009, it's always been the rotation with the Yankees. It's not to say that there's Jarrett Wright and Carl Pavano in the rotation right now, because I think that's untrue. But I think health is a big question mark for the Yankees rotation, and I would be a little concerned about Severino. I think that he'll probably be okay. Look to be in better shape. That's kind of contradictory with the injury, but he looked to be in better shape. But then you look at the rest of the question marks and the injury history in that rotation. I think that's concerning, and that should be the biggest question mark and the biggest concern for Yankees and their fans moving forward.
Are you at least a little surprised that now that we have this extended timeline on Severino's injury, that the Yankees still seem to have no interest in bringing Dallas Keuchel or Gio Gonzalez, that they seem content going with Luis Cessa and Domingo Germán?
John Heyman reported yesterday that the Yankees were at least keeping tabs on Gio Gonzalez. I wrote a few weeks ago when the injury first came down what the Yankees should do, and I think Gio would be a home run for them. He's a lefty. He's extremely durable. Over his last 6 or 7 seasons, he's only been really, really bad half the season, and that was this year with this past season with Washington. He was terrible, and then he went to the Brewers and he was lights out for them over 6 or 7 starts. So Gio's a guy that I think is very, very underrated. He's going to give you 30-plus starts a year. He's never had bad injury issues throughout his career. I'm a little surprised, though, that they haven't. I think Keuchel, too, if you look at their home run prevention numbers just in general, Gio has been better in his career over Dallas. So I think that's part of it, too. But, yeah, I'm surprised. I'm surprised they didn't really make a run at either guy before all this came down. Domingo Germán, we saw how up and down he could be. I mean, the legend of Luis Cessa lives on.
Joe, he's had an 06 ERA in spring training. I shouldn't be excited over that.
Oh my God, no.
I mean, I wouldn't be. Greg Bird is Mr. Spring Training every year, right? So we see that, but it's tough. It's tough to see how they really go into the division race this year with relying on one of those two guys. It's just difficult for me. It really is. You can't win a division in April, but you can certainly lose one. And I think that the Yankees have to get off to a good start this year. And I think not having that extra reinforcement and relying on a lot of these guys now, it's tough for me to see how that really helps their case. It really is. Not to discredit Luis Cessa, because you don't give up on talent, because he's got a really talented arm, but it just seems like he hasn't been able to put it together. And Germán is a guy that doesn't seem like he's just built to be a starter. He runs out of gas. He has one really bad inning where he falls apart. So we saw that last year a bunch. I don't see why they would just roll the dice on those guys. It's tough. I know people say, it's only March, and then it's only April. Oh, it's only May, it's only June, and then you're at the All-Star break and you still don't have those answers at the back end of your bullpen. And that's something that the Yankees really haven't been able to remedy for a few years, and I think that's a big problem for them.
Well, Joe, I think you really made such a great point just now, because I don't think our worry is necessarily in Luis Severino. It's more of what we've been talking about for the last few weeks, that this rotation is built for him to be the ace, and without him leading this rotation, the other pieces become a little more, questionable. But my anxiety is through the roof now thinking about it, so I can't even breathe. Let's go on to something that's a little more of a lighter topic, something that every Yankee fan's talking about. We have 2 first basemen going at it neck and neck. They're extremely comparable. We've talked nonstop about how the Yankees need a lefty power bat in this lineup, and that if Bird was close, he might get the nod. Who do you see winning the Yankees first base job? I know Cashman said something yesterday. It sounds like Voit has it right now, but you never know with this team, and whatever Cashman says, you got to take with a grain of salt. Who do you think wins that first base job for the New York Yankees?
It's a tough question, Chris. It really is. If I'm the Yankees, I'm giving Bird one last shot, and I really am. And if he gets off to a bad start early in the season, then you have Voit there as the emergency pull lever thing, whatever. And I think that between the injury history with Bird just not being able to coming back last year and not being able to turn it on, I think if you give him one more chance, prove he can stay healthy and be that lefty power bat. He still has a smooth swing. You can tell he bulked up his bottom half. I mean, he's thick now, man.
No, he did that because he wants to challenge Luke Voit to a steel cage match. And
that's true. Actually, that's on the record. Actually,
they're going to be running through the forest with logs on their backs and flipping tires and hitting them with sledgehammers before you know it. It's going to be a strongman competition, American Ninja Warrior between the two to figure out who's going to win. But really, I think. You got to look at Bird first, maybe just on genetics alone and the fact that he's a lefty hitter. I think that matters in this predominantly righty Yankee lineup.
See, we keep saying that, but it doesn't seem like that bothers Brian Cashman. Like every time you hear the guy talk, it doesn't bother him that he's going to have 8 or 9 left right-handers in his lineup.
Yeah, I think the thing is, as long as you can hit pitching, you can hit lefty pitching or righty pitching. I think that's what really matters. I don't think just analytics say lefty righty doesn't matter as much anymore. As long as they can hit both sides. But yeah, I think having that lefty bat in there, I think that really helps. And Bird's not necessarily a big strikeout guy. We've seen him before. He hit 275 before. I know that hasn't really been the case over the last few years between his injuries and everything, but I think that matters too. I mean, it's tough, man. Do you really trust what you saw from Luke Voit at the end of the season last year? Do we really think he's going to hit like he did? He's going to be the power hitter that he was. You think he can replicate that? I mean, that's a tough question to ask, and that's a big projection too. I think because if the Cardinals didn't see it with him last year, or the year before that, or the year before that, then what makes the Yankees think that they can figure it out now? That's a big gamble to take, especially in a division as competitive as this early on.
Joe, what do you see the Yankees doing with Clint Frazier this year? Because Hicks might be missing opening day. So do you see Frazier maybe starting on the 25-man roster this year?
Oh, man. Clint Frazier, that whole trade now is just, it looks weirder and weirder by the day, right? Because Justice Sheffield, he shipped out, and you find out that maybe the Yankees weren't as high on him to begin with. And now Clint Frazier, it just seems like every opportunity he gets, the Yankees just don't seem high on him for whatever reason. I don't know why that is. I really don't. He didn't get off to the greatest start in spring. He really hasn't been super impressive overall. I think he should get a shot at the major league level, because if he was knocking on the door with Cleveland and he was traded in a massive package then, I don't see why not give him the opportunity now. So I think he could, and I think he's a valuable piece, especially given Aaron Hicks' injury history. You don't know if Brett Gardner is going to be wearing down this year. Again, like he always does in the second half. You don't know what Stanton's going to be in left field if you play him left field every day at that point. So I think he is a very, very valuable piece to have for the outfield, and I think that you have to give him a shot. I think he's earned it. It's tough to say that when he hasn't really been producing as much, but he's healthy now, presumably, and you have to give him a shot at some point. I never really believed in having these guys that are knocking on the door at the major league level and just not giving them a shot to see what they can do. And I think Frazier's just been in purgatory for so long between the injuries and just not getting that shot. You don't know why the Yankees aren't really willing to give him that. So listen, if Hicks isn't there opening day, I think that Frazier should get the nod. I don't see why not. There's no harm in it. And if he's terrible, you just stick it out. I mean, this is a team that was playing Shane Robinson every day, right? So if you're last year, if you're in the race there, you got to give him a shot and wait until Hicks gets back and see what you got with Frazier for them.
Well, one of the most polarizing figures in Yankee Twitter is Gary Sanchez. You have the Gary defenders, and the people that would rather see him get shot with a cannon than ever play for the Yankees again. So let me ask you, who is the real Gary Sanchez? What are we going to see out of this guy this year? Is he a 185 hitter, or is he the guy the Kraken, the guy that's going to smack 35 home runs in a season?
Or both?
I spoke to a few last week or the week before. I spoke to John Flaherty, former Yankee catcher, and I spoke to David Cohn. I actually asked them this very question. What is Gary Sanchez? And listen, I know what they tell me, what the guys who play the game tell me, and they don't believe that what you saw from Sanchez last year is what he is. I think that they're both sold that he's going to be a big-time hitter. And sometimes guys have bad years. I mean, guys are allowed to have bad years. It happens, man. And Sanchez was good the year before that, and he was good his debut season. So I don't see where the hate for Sanchez is coming from all of a sudden.
Joe,
he was a top prospect for a while.
Pass balls.
I mean,
pass balls. That's all anyone cares about.
Pass balls, yeah. But you know what? When the Yankees were winning championships with Jorge Posada, and
that's
he
what
was
I keep
leading
telling
the league
people.
in pass balls,
Nobody ever mistake. What's the word I'm looking for? Mistake Or mistook.
That's
I'm having
funny.
trouble with English today.
We really are.
Nobody ever confused Jorge Posada for Johnny Bench back behind the plate, but they didn't care because the Yankees were winning championships and he would hit 25 home runs in a season.
Right.
So if the Yankees win a World Series, is anybody going to care about pass balls if Gary Sanchez hits 30 home runs in a season?
No, absolutely not. And that's the thing. I think part of it is if Sanchez wasn't hitting last year, then people were expecting him to be healthy, which he wasn't. And people were expecting him to play stellar defense, which, admittedly he wasn't. But again, if you look at Jorge Posada's numbers, and you hate to keep making the comparison because Gary, with all his potential, he's not at that level yet. But Jorge Posada is probably the worst defensive catcher in baseball history. If you look at the advanced stats, so and they still won how many World Series with him behind the plate? So. Listen, I think that Gary, you have to look at his 2018 season and just throw it out. You really do. Because if a guy he's a top prospect for that long, if people around the organization are still high on him, which they are, and if you got to trust him. You got to trust him to bounce back. I mean, he was a top prospect for how long? And we saw that he can hit. And we saw that he has a good approach to the plate. I think just to wrap it up here, I think part of what Sanchez's problem last year was that he was trying to hit home runs on every swing. You just saw it. He was pressing. He came back and he wanted to be the hero at the plate. He took big hacks every time he was up. So I think that's something he's going to remedy this year. I think he's got a smarter approach. Aaron Boone is high on him. I think the organization's still high on him. I don't think Sanchez is going anywhere anytime soon.
Joe, just a couple more questions before we wrap up with you here. A lot of
Speaking of polarizing figures in Yankee Twitter.
Yeah, here we go. I mean, we got the manager, Aaron Boone. We just spoke with his brother last week, and we kind of picked his brain as to why Aaron Boone is the man for the job, why the Yankees picked him, and why we should be confident that he could lead this team to a World Series. He led this team to 100 wins in the regular season, and as Yankee fans, we're so quick to just, there's so many people out there saying, who cares? They didn't win anything past that. It doesn't matter, but it does, because he was a rookie manager who led a team that still wasn't fully built to 100 wins in a division where the division leader had 108. So that's saying a lot, but there were some things that you can definitely critique Aaron Boone on that he needs to improve in year 2 as a manager. Where do you see him, making his improvements, and what do you expect out of him in 2019?
I think that Boone is the type of guy that realizes when he makes mistakes. I know that last year it doesn't seem that way, but I just see him as a smart guy that understands when something went wrong or where something went wrong. I don't think he's a stubborn guy that's stuck in his ways like previous Yankee managers. I just don't see that. So I think Boone knows what happened in the postseason. Maybe some questionable bullpen decisions there. I think he knows what went wrong. He even acknowledged that after the season. Listen, he dealt with a black hole at first base last year. He dealt with Aaron Judge being out last year for 6 weeks. He dealt with Gary Sanchez being terrible last year. He had to play Shane Robinson in the outfield last year. It's tough. I don't understand why Yankee fans are so brutal on this guy. He won 100 games. He won as a rookie manager, never managed before in his life. He wasn't a bench coach anywhere. He
didn't even coach a T-ball team, Joe.
Yeah. It's great. Like Alex Cora, people seem to forget for however good he was for Boston last year. He just won a World Series the year before with A.J. Hinch, who's one of the best managers in Major League Baseball. So you can understand where he was getting his tutelage from. Aaron Boone never did that. He never had that in his life. I mean, he comes from obviously a long lineage of great baseball men and his father and his brother, and the baseball runs through their blood. But when you start sitting on that bench and you have to deal with all the bells and whistles and injuries and playing time and keeping everybody involved, and you still win 100 games in a division where the Rays were better than everybody expected, Boston was historic. That's a fantastic job. It just is. So now you're giving him an improved team on paper with a better bullpen than last year. You're presumably giving him a healthy Gary Sanchez. You're going to give him an option at first base for the majority of the year. There's no reason to think that he won't do as good of a job as he did last year. There's just none. The pitching is going to be tough. That's going to be the tough part for him to navigate through the injuries throughout the next few months with Severino out. But I have no reason to believe, none whatsoever, to believe that Aaron Boone won't be as good as he was last year. I have reason to believe he'll be better. I don't believe he's going to be worse by any stretch, though.
Joe, I got to just interject real quick. Little off topic here, but you just mentioned that last year was a black hole at first base. I believe you said first base. The first episode, it's funny that you said that because the first episode that you came on with us,
It wasn't his first episode.
It was, I think.
No, it wasn't.
Oh, it was the second?
He interviewed him during
Well, he's
the
been on the
ALCS.
show 400 times, so...
I know what episode you're referring to.
The title was An Insult to Black
401
Hole.
now.
Yeah, right. An insult to black holes. And it's funny because it like popped up on my phone the other day and I'm like, who were we talking about? And I think I know in my head, but I want to know if you remember or if anyone here remembers.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Joe, do you? Do you know who we were talking about?
Oh, man.
It wasn't
I think we're talking about Greg Bird.
I don't think so.
It wasn't one person
No.
in particular.
Oh, wow.
It was, we were talking about the DH spot for the Yankees during the ALCS in 2017.
Yeah, but we were talking about one person because
No,
then
we were talking about
Joe
multiple.
gave us the quote, which was phenomenal. He said, I think calling him a black hole would be an insult to black holes. I'm almost positive it was Chase Headley.
It was Chase Headley and Jacoby Ellsbury because they were
yes,
playing DH.
yes.
I remember
they were
that.
Yes,
hitting.
yes, it was. Yes, it was, because I often said that Chase Headley trade, I understand. Listen, at the end of the day, you were just giving up Jan Hervis Solarte, but I always thought that Chase Headley trade was a major projection by Cashman. And even playing in a
I
ballpark
think you said
that was
mistake
as
wrong.
cavernous as Petco. Yeah, I mean, that was always a projection. So yeah, I mean, Chase Headley wasn't. That was just a bad trade all around. I think that even Cashman would probably admit, when you consider how valuable Solarte can be in multiple positions. And that year, I think Girardi just needed to sit him down so he could catch his bearings, and he just never did. And he cooled off significantly, and he never figured it out. But yeah, I remember that. I remember that clearly now. Chase Headley, the black hole. Yeah.
Thanks for losing us listeners for bringing up Chase Headley. But both of you. We'll let you go on
Headley
this.
was a great
Go ahead,
Headley
Joe.
was a great guy. He was a fantastic guy, but I just think that he was in over his head in New York, and that's really all you can say about it.
All right, Joe, we're going to let you go on this, and if you answer the Baltimore Orioles, I'm going to be very, very upset.
We're just going to cut the whole interview and never invite you back on.
So you gotta make your prediction now. I don't care if the Sporting News tells you you have to do it in 2 weeks. We're making you do it now. Who's winning the American League East?
Well, since I can't answer Baltimore, but I think Toronto's got a real shot here, guys. I know, I'm just kidding. Listen, I think on paper, right now, the Yankees are the most complete team in Major League Baseball. I don't think there's much debate about that. Super bullpens are what baseball's built on now. And I think the Yankees, it's been a theme over the last 5 or 6 years, but they routinely have the best bullpen in baseball. It's up to Aaron Boone to navigate those injuries in the starting pitching in the rotation, to really try and figure that out and not tire out his bullpen early on in the season. Because if we're talking about guys having 25 innings pitched at the end of March or at the end of April, then I think that's a problem. I think the Yankees right now, on whatever day this is, March 16th, March whatever we are, the Yankees are probably the best team on paper. I think that they're probably, again, the most complete team in baseball. Next to probably the Astros are up there, but yeah, I think they're winning the division. I think I said that last year, and nobody could have predicted what Boston did last year. It truly was historic what they did, top to bottom. And I think the Yankees can probably put together a great year this year, and I think they are going to win that division.
Joe, let me ask you a question, because it seems like that you played it at a home crowd on this show, because I follow you on Twitter. You're always ripping Yankee fans. They don't like you very much, and then you come on here, you say all these nice things about the Yankees. If you were doing this, if we were in Baltimore and this was a Baltimore Orioles podcast, would you legitimately answer Baltimore to that last question?
I think the first thing I would say is, what the hell am I doing on an Orioles podcast? But really, I really think, to be fair, I think we all know every fan base has that that loud, angry, impatient, aggravating section. They're always the loudest ones on Twitter. They're the vocal minority, and those are the ones that I really go after.
You don't have to say it, but we will. The dumbest ones are the loudest.
Right. Right.
I won't say that, but yes, that does sound about accurate. But yeah, I mean, listen, I think if I was on a radio show in Boston, I would say that the Yankees are still probably the best team in this division right now, even coming off a World Series winning 100 games. I just look at this Yankee team. I think Cashman did a good job this offseason bringing back Britton, really reinforcing that bullpen. That's going to matter a lot. I think he loses points on not bringing in another starter. Aside from Paxton, I mean, bringing back J Happ is pretty big. But again, J Happ is 37 years old now, so I don't really know how much he's got left. Obviously pitched well for them last year, but yeah, I think the Yankees are the best team in the division. I can say that on this podcast. I can say it's on the Boston Sports Talk podcast, Red Sox Talk podcast, whatever. I'll be on whatever one, and I'll say the same thing everywhere. So, yeah, I don't really have I will play to the crowd a little bit. I think it's a Mick Foley cheap pop type thing. Christian knows what I'm talking about. Yep. But yeah, I do think that the Yankees are the best team, and that's the truth.
All right, Joe. We thank you to the moon and back for coming on, doing the show here, even though we made you wait an hour with technical difficulties.
We did. To peel back the curtain a bit, Christian wanted to tell Joe that we had technical difficulties, but really this was his way of getting him back for the last time he was on the show, because Joe said he was cutting the WWE network out of his lineup at home, and Christian doesn't let things go, so...
I did watch the last wrestling pay-per-view event, so I mean it's not out of my blood entirely. It's like Godfather 3. Just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in. But,
that was the worst move I ever saw in my life, Joe.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. I think the incest part of it really.
Oh, that was I mean, come on! Like, what are you doing there?
They have incest in there
in Godfather 3. Yeah,
wow.
It was just so awful. It's like, how do you go from Godfather 2 to that pile of crap?
I never saw it.
Don't waste.
I heard.
Your time.
Waste my time.
I think they waited like 20. What was it? It came out in 1990, years. So they waited 16 years to make it. And yeah, I mean, Andy Garcia is awesome. I think he's a very, very underrated actor. But I think where that movie really loses me is the incest part of it. I mean,
let's have sex with my cousin. Yeah, that's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah. I mean, just to wrap it up, but I think the Godfather movies they're very allegorical to like ancient Rome and crime families of ancient Rome, or early Roman history and Italian history and those powerful families, the Borgias and all that. But they were a bit too on the nose, I think, when it came to the incest stuff and Godfather 3. And I think that was a big detriment to that movie. But listen, Andy Garcia was great. Al Pacino wasn't bad, but you can certainly see where his career takes a turn for the worse. And I think that movie was a big part of it.
All right, Joe, thank you again for coming on. We'll touch base during the season. Follow Joe on Twitter at Joe Rivera SN if you want to get yelled at by Joe.
Yeah, right. He yells at all Yankee fans, so follow him.
Joe, thanks a lot. And like we said, we'll touch base during the season. Take care, buddy.
Thanks, Joe.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right, we're back here on episode 105 of the NYY Sports Talk podcast. That was our interview with Joe Rivera, the Sporting News. Follow Joe on Twitter at Joe Rivera SN. Incest and Godfather 3 aside, God only knows the topics that come up on the show.
Yeah, that could have gone down a really bad path.
But that movie sucked, and that was the reason why that movie
I will
sucked.
not ever watch that movie.
Have you seen The Godfather 2?
I got to say something.
Well, answer the question. Have you seen The Godfather 2? The Godfather 2 is one of the greatest movies ever.
I got to say, which is the one where Sonny dies?
The first one.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler.
Okay.
I mean, Jesus, if you at this point.
So just listen, okay?
Very old movie.
My whole life, all I heard from my dad was Godfather is the greatest movie of all time.
The first one, in my opinion, is overrated. It's a great movie, but it's overrated. The second one is better to me.
And I'm not saying that I didn't like the movie, but I didn't understand the hype. I would never, after watching that, be like, I need to watch the next one.
But the second one is phenomenal.
It might be Robert De Niro's I'm not a big mob guy.
Yeah, but it might. Are you a Robert De Niro fan?
I am.
This might be his best role.
I really am a De Niro guy. I got to see The Irishman coming out. I actually know someone who worked on the set of that.
Oh, you know who owned the Bada Bing? You know who worked on the set of The Irishman?
Yeah, what kind of mob connections you got, bro?
Listen, I'm not a mob guy, but I know. Hey,
that's why, bro. Don't fuck with me. Seriously.
Yeah, right.
I'm high up.
Put a hit out on us?
Hell yeah.
You could have every single mobster that ever lived standing behind you, and I still wouldn't be afraid of you.
You should be. You should be. Actually, that means I'm a genius because that's how it's supposed to be. I don't want you to fear me, right? You're loose when you're around me, but really, you should fear every step you take in front of me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Imagine you as a mob boss.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Call me back at 12. I'm not awake yet. I'd be the worst.
Would you go after the unions, or would you be more like construction, money laundering? Like, what would you be your big racket? Gambling, prostitution? Like, what would you be into if you were a mob boss?
Probably the gambling stuff.
Yeah.
It intrigues me.
But you have yet to watch Molly's Game.
I gotta watch it. The gambling aspect intrigues me.
It's a great movie.
Like you go to the boardwalk, you love Wildwood. You go to the boardwalk, you play those like crane games, anything, all mob. All that's mob.
I'll make him an offer you can't refuse.
It's all mobbed up. Okay.
A crane game.
Maybe the mob shouldn't know this, but I'm pretty good at them. Like, I win at a higher percentage than most other people do at those games.
That's why you have a target on your back.
Okay. If I got whacked for winning a friggin' stuffed rabbit out of a crane, I guess I deserved it.
Probably.
So let's rein it in here. Let's talk a little baseball. I know busting Joe's balls about playing to the home crowd and saying the Yankees were going to win the division, but I think it's based on if you're going to break down this division logically. I don't see how you come to a different conclusion. The thing that worries me the most right now from a Yankee perspective is Luis Severino, because last week or whenever we talked about it, and it was only supposed to be maybe missed 2 or 3 weeks of the season. Now we hear the words at least May 1st, which, we were only supposed to miss Aaron Judge for 10 games, and then he missed 6 weeks or whatever it was. So I don't really have a lot of faith in the Yankees medical staff right now. Now that knowing Sevy's going to miss at least the first month, probably longer, does that really put a dent in the Yankees' chances of winning this division?
I don't think it does, but I said this during the interview. I'm not sitting here like worried that he's going to miss a month of the season. I still think he's going to come back, and he's going to, we have to remind ourselves of this every single season, how long a baseball season truly is. That 1 month, of course, it makes a difference. Every game makes a difference, but by the time the end of the season comes, if Sevy comes back healthy and dominant, you're not even going to remember that he missed the first half. My biggest concern is not Sevy himself or that he's not going to be. It's the fact that this rotation is so built around him, because I've said it a million times, you're depending on Severino being that ace, being your one constant that you shouldn't have to have a question mark on.
No, you need Severino to be one and everybody to fall down behind him.
And that's what concerns me, because now you're putting a little more weight on Paxton's shoulders, a little more weight on Tanaka's elbow, a little more weight on CeCe's knee. And, those things start to add up, and you really want Sevy back as soon as possible, not just because he's a great pitcher, but because he's supposed to set the bar and everyone else is supposed to fall behind him.
Yeah, I don't think the worry is necessarily with Sevy being injured. It's just this team really, the worry will come if they don't start out of the gate very hot.
Right.
Because they have Baltimore, then Detroit, and then Baltimore again, their first 9 games. And if they come out of those first 9 in a bit of a deficit, that could be worrisome.
And we said it, and Christian asked it last episode, do you really think that Sevy being out during that stretch of that weak schedule is going to really impact them? No.
But that was when you thought it was 2 or 3 starts. Now it could be 6 or 7, maybe 8.
Right, but I still think they can sustain that. We're talking about a guy, though, that's only pitching every 5th day.
Yeah, but you were talking about a guy that was going to make 30, 32 starts in a season. Now he might not make 20. He might not even make 25 now.
That's at the end of the year, when you look
what
back,
did the Yankees do? They lost the division by 8 games last year, right? So now you're talking about 7 games. Not saying that Sevy wins every single one of his starts, but now you're putting in an inferior pitcher into 7 games of the season. Could that make or break the difference in winning the division this year?
I think with this injury that...
And is he going to be Luis Severino when he comes back?
Yeah, I think he will be. I think with this injury, though, a lot falls on Masahiro Tanaka. I think that this guy needs to really hone it in where... I mean, look, you look at his numbers last year, and they're really respectable. And again, we talk about his postseason runs, and you can't even worry about his regular season at that point. But this year, we're going to have to a little bit because Tanaka needs to kind of rein it in here and be the leader of this rotation right now. And I think a lot falls on him, and I think he does need to be strong while Sevy's out. It's kind of like Stanton stepping up when Judge was hurt and Andujar stepping up. I think Tanaka needs to lead the way and hand the ball off every 5th day to someone else.
Well, so who do you go to? Who's going to take these starts? Now, CeCe's not going to be ready to start the season. You heard the Yankees might just put him on the active roster to start the season to get this suspension out of the way and then see where he's at. I don't know how they do the bookkeeping on that, but whatever, that's for them to figure out. So who is going to take these starts? I think the odd man out right now, as you keep hearing the names Loaisiga, Herman, and Sessa. The odd man out right now is Jonathan Loaisiga.
Yeah, I agree with that.
He hasn't pitched well in spring training, and I think we keep saying it, the guy needs more seasoning down in the minor leagues. Yeah. Now, Herman is pitching to a 1.5 ERA in spring training, and Luis Sessa is pitching to an 0.69 ERA. So if you I know you don't want to put too much stock in what's going on in spring training, but if you're going to find replacements, you got to find out who's pitching the best, right? So those guys are clearly pitching the best.
Yeah, I mean, this is where I've changed since doing this show. I wouldn't even answer this question a few years ago. I would just sit there on the phone or wherever we were and tell you, fuck this team. They should go out and get someone. It shouldn't be any of them. They need to go blah, blah, blah. But you know what? Doing this show, you got to just take it for what it is. And this is the direction the Yankees seem to be going in. And as much as it hurts me and makes me sick to my stomach, I have to go with Luis Sessa because I know that this guy can pitch in the major leagues. And I know he's used to being slotted in, and to be honest with you, I want to see Herman out of the bullpen. I don't want to see him as a starter anymore. I just think he could be such a good reliever, and I think Loaisiga should stay in AAA all year.
The issue with Herman being a reliever is that bullpen is so stacked right now. What are you going to do with him if you put him out there? They don't even think they might not even have a spot for Tommy Kahnle, and I think they want to have him on. I think they want to have him on the big league roster this year.
What the hell is going on with that guy?
No, he's pitching well.
I know. I'm just saying it's Tommy Kahnle. I mean, this was a guy that was a big piece to that.
Well, I don't know if he's pitching well. I haven't seen his numbers, but I know his velocity's up from last year.
Yeah, it is. So, and that was one of the big concerns. Plus his control.
Well, speaking of velocity being up. We talked about it the other day about Dellin Betances' velocity not being a big deal, but then I heard something that the other day that he was doing work on one of the backfields and he, quote, thinks he'll be ready for spring training. What do you mean opening day? What do you mean he thinks he's going to be ready for opening day? There's something wrong with him?
That was a verbatim quote. Like,
yeah, maybe Ryan can get some information on that, but I was like,
thanks.
Boone and Betances both that day that he was pitching were like, oh, no, it's just part of the process. And now he thinks he'll be ready for opening day. No, he's got to be. I mean, you can't start pulling pieces out of his bullpen.
No, not the way the rotation's constructed right now. You got to rely on that bullpen. Everyone needs to be ready. That's concerning. That's the most concerning quote I've heard all offseason.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think he... That's what I'm saying. Like, I didn't think there was anything wrong with him, and then all you hear him with this quote, and then...
I think I'll be ready for opening day.
Well, you know who's not going to be ready for opening day? We found out now is friggin' Aaron Hicks.
It's just crazy, man.
The Yankees say he'll be healthy by March 28th, but now they're looking at it that he's going to need more ABs, and he's not going to be able to start the season on time.
it's like we got younger, right? But I feel like we have more injuries now than we ever did. Is it because of the new age of baseball, the technology, that these injuries wouldn't be as much of a big deal back in the day? And by back in the day, I mean 10, 15 years ago.
Think people knew what oblique strains were in the 70s?
No.
So come on, that's really what it comes down to.
But I'm not, like I just said, I'm not even talking about that far back. Like, think about how old this team was just back in 2008, 2009, after those seasons, how old this team was moving forward. I feel like there's more injury now than there ever was.
A lot more cautious with the players now because of the amount of money that they make.
Oh, that too.
Click away over there, but he can't seem to.
Ryan can't get it up.
I have it up, but it's blocked here.
It's blocked.
It's just this computer.
We'll get you a new computer.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I like it. It's a great computer, Chris.
So ungrateful.
So, I mean, you want to go quickly through the AL East? I mean, there's really nothing to talk about in Baltimore.
No, listen, I feel so bad for that fan base at this point.
Do you really?
I do. They have such a beautiful stadium. That fan base should enjoy and look forward to going to baseball games whenever they can. And it's just like, after the first month of the season, there's 100 people in the stands? Unless the Yankees are there. Unless the Red Sox are there.
They only draw opening day when the Yankees and Red Sox come.
It's crazy.
And if they're unlucky and they get Boston or New York during the middle of the week, when those fan bases can't travel down because they're working, they're screwed.
Yeah, that sucks. I mean, I do, but you know what? Joe touched on it too. They just don't seem to have like a plan. There's no future right now where you're excited. I'm not saying they don't have talented young guys in the organization.
They don't.
But they don't have those guys that you're just like excited. And when the Yankees sold everyone in 2016, right? We've said it that you don't expect a team to just, come back the next season to make the postseason. At that point, we were ready for a couple years of just really bad baseball. We got lucky. But what was the one thing always keeping us, on our toes and excited? It was to see these young stars that it's all we heard about. Baltimore fans don't even have that. So I'm telling you, that organization is headed in a really, really, really bad direction right now. So, yeah, they suck.
All right, so you got the Blue Jays, who, I mean, they have two of they probably do. Is Vigoro the top prospect in baseball?
I think so. I think he is.
So you got him, but,
position player wise, at least,
they're going to be without him for a while because of the oblique strain. They have Bichette out there. They have some really good young players that may impact the team in 2019 or not, but I don't personally see them being any type of threat or nuisance to the Yankees or Red Sox.
No, neither of those two teams will be. There's no way.
And how good are the Rays going to be this year? Are they going to win 90 games again?
Look, I think Kevin Cash...
Can they win in the high 80s?
I think Cash does a really good job down there. I think having a manager like that, they can. I mean, they can win 85 games this year. And I don't think they will win the division. Maybe they will win the second wild card. Who knows? But I don't think they're going to get in the way of the Yankees or the Red Sox winning this division. But they will be a pain in the ass. They're not going to be a pushover. They're not.
They might have the best pitcher in the American League in Blake Snell. I mean, he won the Cy Young last year.
Yeah,
that's fair to say.
I see Blake Snell as more of a Rick Porcello kind of guy where he could have a dominant year, and I just don't see him replicating that this year coming up. I think he's going to come back down to earth a little bit.
Your opinion.
Yeah, well, let's see if I'm right. I'm not saying he's not great. I just don't think he's as dominant as... You
just called him Rick Porcello.
And Rick Porcello won a Cy Young, and he has a couple World Series rings. So what's wrong with his career?
He's not a great pitcher, though. He's a very up and down.
That's what I think Blake Snell is. I don't think we can sit here and say they maybe have the best pitcher in the American League.
They might have the best pitcher in the American League.
I just don't see him profiling as that guy.
Okay.
I think him winning Cy Young was the fluke, not the... not what he actually is.
21-5 with a 1.89 last year.
Yeah, and what are his other seasons?
5-7, 6-8.
What was the ERA in those seasons?
3.54 in 2016, 4.04 in 2017.
I think he's a low to mid 3.
Last
ERA
year was
pitcher.
the first season he pitched over 25 starts in a
because he
season.
came into his own finally.
Maybe he did, and maybe that's why I'm not as high on him as everyone else, but I just don't see him as being that guy his whole career. I think he's more of a mid 3 ERA, maybe 3.25 to 3.50 ERA. And that's still good.
All right, so then we'll move to Boston. I mean, we know how deadly they are on offense. They made no upgrades there, but they didn't need to. Their starting pitching is pretty much the same. Again, you're going to look at Chris Sale and can he stay healthy? And, we didn't bring it up in the interview, but Joe mentioned the shoulder issue, and he did it. He wasn't throwing as hard, when he came back. But, to me, a lot of him missing time in the later part of the season had to do with the fact that they were up so many games.
Yeah.
They might have tried to push him if they really needed to push to win that division.
Yeah.
So
I
now
agree.
if the Yankees are up or they keep it closer than they did last season, you might need Chris Sale for more games. And what's Boston going to get out of him if he's got to make 30 starts, pitch 200-plus innings?
Yeah. I'm someone who, this team just won the World Series. I hate to sit here and say that the Yankees are going to be better than them. It just doesn't sit well with me. But if you want to just talk about it as far as the way the rosters are built, let's just keep it simple at this. The Yankees are a much more well-rounded team right now, whereas the Red Sox, you don't even call them holes. They're just it's just concerns because we've seen the path that baseball has taken and how important it is to have a good bullpen. And you want to say Joe Kelly wasn't an elite reliever? Fine, I'll agree with you. But
look up Joe Kelly's postseason
numbers. That's exactly what I was getting at. He was a big reason why they were so successful.
What was his ERA in the postseason this year?
It had to be low 1.
It was 0.
Was it really?
6 innings pitched, but didn't allow a run.
6 big innings.
Yeah, big postseason innings.
So
that's huge.
That's a lot.
Look, we're not saying that somebody in Boston's bullpen can't step up for them.
Right.
But you can't be a legitimate, in my mind, in this day and age in baseball, you cannot be a legitimate contender without one proven commodity in your bullpen.
Right. I agree.
Plus, when those guys step up, well, then you have a hole in the middle. Then you don't have the middle relievers. These guys were their middle relievers, and now they're becoming their setup specialists. Now that leaves a hole in the 6th, 7th inning. You're going to need a lot from this starting rotation.
We brought it up here before. How do you let the Yankees sign Adam Ottavino, especially at the price that they signed him for, when you're Boston and you need bullpen help?
I'm going to bring this up because I think it's a fun topic to discuss right now. We talk about how frustrating it is, right, to hear every Yankee fan complain about every little thing. It seems like everyone's against what this organization tries to do as a whole. I feel like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just my outlook on things. I feel like in Boston, the fans... in Boston, I feel like the fans are with ownership too much, with the organization too much, where fans are sitting back right now and just going, we don't need bullpen. We got the best team in baseball. We're gonna do it. So what would you rather have if the Yankees were in the Red Sox position right now? They just got done winning the World Series, but now they have this non-existent bullpen. I guess
you're a little bit more easygoing the year after you win a title.
Maybe, but not really. I mean, that's the goal every year. It doesn't matter.
I understand that, but are you more? If you're a Red Sox fan, are you desperate to win this year?
Yeah.
No, you're not.
Hell yeah.
You just won.
Am I watching? Then you know what? I'll watch 80 games this year. No, I don't really care.
No.
I see your point.
But I don't think
that pressure's gone.
I don't think it has to do with all that.
Which fan base is more hungry for a title right now, the Yankees or the Red Sox?
By far the Yankees.
Okay, so that's my point here. Is they just won last year. The fans,
so you think that has to do with it?
They want to win again this year, but they're not hungry. They're not dying for it. Like the Yankees haven't won in 10 years. Now, while you're going to talk to a Seattle Mariner fan who's never won a goddamn thing, but 10 years is a long time to the Yankees.
And don't forget, man, they have so much depth.
And we just got... I'm sorry to cut you off, but we're tired of getting our shit kicked in by our biggest rival and watching them win every year. So now, as Yankee fans, we're hungry for this. We want this. Boston just like...
But now, as a fan of Boston, you're just okay and sitting back and saying, maybe they will kick our teeth in.
Did I say that? Is that what I said?
No, but what I'm trying to portray to you is put yourself in their shoes. Just because you won a title and you might not be as hungry, you're just going to be okay with the fact that you're just going to go with ownership and say, we don't need them. We're still great.
Would you trust ownership more after they just win a title and trust their vision more after you just won the World Series?
Yeah. Yep.
Maybe that's what they're thinking.
I feel like
sorry, you go.
All right.
You go.
Their plan has to be...
No, you go.
No, you go.
You go.
To stick it out with this current roster they have built, but dude, they have a lot of depth offensively that if things are going sour for the bullpen, they can just go ahead and trade one of these guys. They could trade a Xander Bogaerts, they could trade a Rafael Devers and get an Eduardo Nunez, a Brock Holt, and get a reliable relief pitcher. So they have the depth to
you hear what Alex Cora said the other day?
That's a good point.
So I see them going that route, playing it out. It's going to fail. They're going to start out the year slow as a bullpen. They'll be fine offensively, and they'll win a lot of games. But when they need to make that push, that playoff push, they're going to trade one of their offensive pieces for a bullpen arm.
I didn't hear what he said. It was quoted on CNB, and let me see if I could paraphrase it. That he said the 8-game deficit that the Yankees faced this year last season will be nothing compared to what's going to happen this season.
I like that.
Good luck.
Because you know what? That, as much as I hate Alex Cora, as much as I don't respect him in any regard with what comes out of his mouth, the way he acts on the field, he has taken on a certain persona that works in Boston.
A douchebag?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And you know what? We don't like it here, but that's exactly what I want to hear Alex Cora say going into this season. But that goes back to my point to, is it that they just won a World Series that the fans are a little more complacent? Or is it the fact that they are just brainwashed by everything they hear and see? Whereas here, Aaron Boone wins 100 games and we want to, half the fan base wants to wring his neck. Alex Cora was always a hero to them, even when they first... I didn't see a lot of concern when they hired Alex Cora that he was never a manager before.
He just came off a
and
World
they
Series
just fell in love. The whole nation fell in love with him even before the World Series. Now everything out of anyone's mouth in Boston, the fans eat up. Would you rather have it that way, or would you rather have fans that have issues and bring up concerns?
Oh yeah, it's fun arguing with people over irrational things all the time.
Well, I'm asking you, would you rather them just go with the flow?
How deep into Red Sox Twitter are you in their social media and following their fan base? Are they really that into everything?
Do you know how we say the loudest are the most obnoxious and irrational in Yankee Twitter, at least? I feel like there are the same amount of people in Boston, but the difference is they're true fans. Their loud ones are the positive ones.
They're all loud and obnoxious over there.
Yeah. And you know what? They love baseball. They truly love baseball. Whereas, a good portion of Yankee fans don't really appreciate the game the way a true fan does. It's just that they're the New York Yankees, and that's fine. But those are the ones that are the loudest, it seems. And in Boston, it just, I don't know, it just seems a little different.
They're winning up there.
We got to start winning here.
Things will change if the Yankees can bring home a title with this regime here.
I hope so.
I mean, the show's running a little long. Do you want to get into the rule changes that were made official?
I actually don't. I will, if you want. I just needed some content for my own show, and I was going to just
Selfish bastard.
I'm not being selfish. It's just more of that.
Right?
I really just wanted to unleash all of my inner emotions.
All right. Well, let's just go through them quickly. Just, give me a couple word answer whether you like it or not. Starting this season, there is no waiver trade deadline. There's only the July 31st trade deadline. You like it?
I don't mind it.
Right?
I'm fine with it.
To me, the only thing is it's going to make teams make decisions that they weren't going to want to quicker.
That's why I don't mind. If you were telling me they were also doing what they thought that they were going to move it up, I wouldn't have liked it. But if they're keeping it at the same day and all they're doing is removing the whole clear waivers and then trade thing, I'm fine with that.
You know, we would have been stuck with another month of Shane Robinson if this happened last year.
Yeah, McCutcheon.
Yeah.
The $1 million for the home run derby champion.
I don't even pay attention to shit like that, to be honest. You know what though?
You know what Aaron Judge said? He said, "Fuck your money."
But here's the thing. I get why they're doing it, and it's a good idea. They're trying to incentivize the guys like Aaron Judge who don't want to do it anymore to do it. But what's $1 million?
Bryce Harper and Giancarlo Stanton don't care.
Right. What's $1 million to guys like that anymore? Seriously. They make that in 10 games.
It's incentive for guys that are on the rookie contracts, But but who are those guys? Who do you want to see?
Right, it's contradicting.
On a rookie contract in the home run derby?
You're trying to incentivize these guys to do it. I mean,
it's for your Judges, your Bellingers.
Guys, got bad news here. We're recording Saturday afternoon. Kyle Higashioka will not make the big club this year. He's been sent to minor league camp.
No more Higgy bombs for now?
You better hope not.
Yeah, really.
You know what I would do? Here's what I would do.
I just noticed this here too. Russell Wilson is in Yankees camp. You think Dave Gettleman is scouting him?
Probably, yeah.
That's how fucked up the Giants are, is that they'll scout Russell Wilson while he's playing baseball.
Here's what I would do with the whole home run derby thing. I wouldn't make it $1 million to the player. I would make it well known that any player who enters the home run derby and wins will get $1 million to their charity of choice to donate. And what that would do is it would take the whole, I don't need $1 million. I just signed an $8 million contract. And what it would do is it would put them on blast, I guess. Was that a term back in?
That's a good term.
All right, let me just follow.
Hold on. Let me just say one thing real quick. Let me just get this point out because my brain. I can't go back and forth. I would take that and I'd put it out there that, hey, Aaron Judge's charity, whatever his big foundation donation.
The All Rise Foundation.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like an outside.
Why wouldn't he just give the money to his own charity?
Yeah, maybe he could. But it would kind of put a little more pressure on him to be like, I should at least try and win this $1 million for them.
So guilt money to the charity.
Yeah, yes.
That's great.
That's really what it should be.
You want guilt people into
it would make these players feel like they were at least a little more obligated.
Well, congratulations to Alex Rodriguez and Jennifer Lopez on their engagement.
Yeah.
That rock is obnoxious.
Did you see the video that the picture I sent?
Yeah.
He's wearing his friggin' World Series.
It's so great. Just to kind of set the tone that he's the only guy that is wearing a ring bigger than the one he's about to hand out. Unreal.
He's getting engaged. This is why Dylan Betances said that he said what he said. Reading this tweet now. He's still trying to play catch up after being delayed in camp because remember he missed the first few weeks because of the birth of his child. So he's not injured. He's just behind everybody else.
Yeah, I was reading. He said when the lights come on, he'll be ready. That's something.
Yeah, but I didn't put one and one together, and when you hear that quote, it's a little concerning. But now, he was delayed a couple of weeks because.
Well, how many? So what was it? 2 weeks he was out?
About that.
For the birth of his child? Come on, man. That's not an excuse.
Shut up.
Well, at my old job, when my son was born, I was threatened to be fired for leaving for a week. So,
all right, let's get through this here. This is for 2019. They're shorting the innings breaks from 2 minutes and 25 seconds to 2 minutes in national games.
Where are you reading that?
No, it's true.
It's an official MLB release.
Oh, because someone on the fan was saying 2 minutes and 5 seconds.
That's for local.
Okay.
155 for local games.
Yeah, down from 205, right?
225.
225.
Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry. It's 205 to 2 for local games, 225 to 2 in national games, and the commissioner's office retains the right to reduce it to 155 for both local and national games in the 2020 season. So, wow, that whole 5 seconds of commercial time is really going to save us a bunch.
That could add up, though, man.
Please, they're just doing things to do things now.
I think it's kind of promising, though, that they're cutting ad revenue now.
But let me just say one thing.
That's a good sign, in my opinion.
Who are we appealing to?
Let's not even get into that right now.
I just want to say one thing,
I know
though.
who we're appealing to. We're appealing to people that don't like baseball to begin with.
And we are people who watch every single day. Are we even going to notice 5 seconds?
No, but...
So what the... Why are we wasting time?
On my own show, I already ranted about this, so, I mean, you can say selfishly
I'm gonna
save your own show.
I'm going to save it.
And Ryan can...
I'll just hold it all in.
Just hold it all in. All right, mound visits. That sound you heard was Gary Sanchez having a panic attack because now... you only have 5 mound visits a game.
Fine with
6.
That. Whatever.
And I brought this up the other day. You should get 9 mound visits, 1 per inning. They don't carry over unless you can save 1 for the 9th inning, so you can have 2 in the 9th inning. Because I don't think that you should limit it in the most important time of the game. You should be able to go visit your pitcher at least twice. If you have 1 in the first inning, you don't use it, you lose it. Unless you don't use any of them, then you're allowed to carry 1 over for the 9th
To
inning.
me, it's just like the biggest things they're trying to do to change this game are eliminating coaches and managers. Like every rule change that's supposed to be such a big impact, it compromises the strategy of the game. Mound visits. Mm-hmm. Now this pitchers have to face 3 batters next year.
Well, we'll get to that because this is for 2020 now. Starting in 2020, the active roster limit from opening day through August 31st and the postseason will now be 26 players.
Love it. I love that.
And
there's a cap on pitchers.
The minimum amount of players, I didn't even know there was a minimum amount of active players, but
24.
Yeah, but now it's 25. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
I just thought that you'd be stupid not to count 25 players.
No, yeah, and
I didn't know.
Does it talk about the cap on pitchers there?
It does, but I will get to that. The current major.
Can you talk to the people a little better?
The current major league roster for double headers is 26, but now you will be allowed a 27th player for double headers.
Huh.
Elimination of the 40-man roster in September. Now you will be able to carry up to 28 players. No, not up to. You must carry 28 players starting in September.
I like that. I've always been against the 40-man roster.
They have not come up with it yet, but it will be jointly discussed. They will come up with a cap number of pitchers. They haven't not come up with the number yet.
I think I heard that they were hovering at 13.
If you're going to have 26 players on your roster, 13 is a fair number.
Yeah.
And listen to this. This is kind of odd. And this might be the Shohei Ohtani rule because it says clubs must designate each of its players as either a position player or a pitcher prior to each player's first day on the active roster.
They must have 20 innings to each.
Or you can designate the player as a two-way player and you qualify as such if they occur at least 20 major league innings pitched and at least 28 major league games started at a position or DH. So this is definitely...
AKA the Shohei Ohtani.
And what does that do? What is designating their position?
Because what they're trying to eliminate is when it's, 16-0 in game 3 of the ALDS,
throwing a position player
having
out
Austin Romine come in to pitch. That's those things because... what happened last year, and we don't notice it as much because it didn't happen in New York.
Happen a lot.
But every single day, there was another position player pitching
in blowout games because teams didn't want to burn through their bullpens.
Because we're in a day and age. We just said it.
Year.
I just said it. Where bullpens matter so much, all these guys were going to. And what did that do? That killed the pace of play for the most part.
All right, and here's the big one. I think that everybody's going to have an opinion over. Actually, we'll get to this right now. The minimum placement for pitchers on the injured list will increase from 10 to 15 days.
Yes.
Okay.
And
the minimum assignment of pitchers, not players, pitchers who are optioned to the minor leagues will also increase from 10 to 15 days.
So they have to stay in the minor leagues for 15 days now.
Yes, unless an injury occurs and they're allowed to be called. I'm assuming they're going to still keep that the same. And that probably ties into this rule. The minimum batters faced rule, which now says all starting and relief pitchers must pitch to at least 3 batters unless the end of the inning occurs first, and then they don't have to bring back the pitcher.
I'm so angry. So
if I come into the game with 2 outs, I strike the guy out, I don't have to come back out.
That's correct. Which when they first announced it, we didn't know if that was going to be the case. So it doesn't bother me as much knowing that if you bring in a pitcher to close out the inning, he can be done after that.
I don't see it happening often, but what's the big thing with pitchers in today's game? Pitch count. Relief pitchers, it's even more severe. They don't throw more than 30 pitches in an outing. What about that guy that goes out there and he struggles through those first two batters?
The problem,
it's too many pitches. It's not going to happen often, but it could be detrimental to people's arms.
I understand what you're saying. If your guy isn't fresh, like he's pitched 2 of the last 3 games,
right,
you might not start him in an inning. Then at that point, you're going to take the risk that if you only got him for 1 batter, that he's going to come and get that batter out.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, here's my thing. I'm not saying that baseball shouldn't evolve, right? Because, excuse me, it has and it should, and every sport should. The problem with the challenge of baseball evolving is that we're talking about a sport. Put aside how much we love the pure aspect of baseball. We're talking about a sport that doesn't have a time limit, that doesn't have a pitch limit. We're talking about a sport where it's unlikely, but a guy could literally...
It's unlikely, very unlikely.
A guy could literally throw 100 pitches to 1 batter.
Yeah.
Would it ever happen? No.
Well, but 20 foul balls.
Is there anything stopping a 100 pitch at bat?
No.
I know it sounds stupid.
There's nothing in the rule book that says
exactly.
you can throw 100 pitches.
So now we're making these rules with the assumption that a guy can't have a 30 pitch at bat.
We've seen 20 pitch at bats.
Absolutely.
Before. 15 pitch at bats.
I think Gardner had like a 20 pitch at bat against Cody Allen in the.
So my issue should be not batters faced. If you want to put a minimum pitch, counter on a pitcher where he has to. Let's take the average amount of pitches thrown to a batter is probably about 5 or in between 5 or 6. Let's say. Mm-hmm. Let's make it 10. Okay, let's say that pitcher has to either throw 30 pitches in an inning.
That's a lot for a reliever.
Yeah.
25, 20 maybe.
Yeah, 20, 25.
I see where you're
going. I actually really like that.
But don't you get nervous when a reliever's throwing 25 pitches in an inning? You feel like he's past his limit? I would say 15 would probably be a decent number.
Okay. Yeah.
If you want to do that.
Yeah. You're right. I was off on my...
That. Yeah, you were.
I meant to say 18. I was saying 6 times 3, 18 per inning. That's should be like a minimum pitch count. It shouldn't be batter based because these guys can technically throw as many pitches as the batter keeps fouling off.
Right.
It doesn't make sense.
2 more batters after I just threw 20 pitches to this guy.
Like we were talking in the car about this whole pitch clock. It shouldn't be how many seconds you have in between getting the ball and then throwing your next pitch. It should be a shorter time that you get to have to get the ball and just get back on the mound and look in for your signs. That should be what it is, because once you're on that mound, you're a pitcher again, and you're doing things for a certain reason. It's the bullshit we're trying to eliminate where the guy goes back and kicks his cleats and picks up the rosin bag and, shimmies his shoulders and wipes his sweat.
Down Batances.
Right.
Yeah.
It's those things. We shouldn't be sacrificing what happens once that guy becomes a pitcher again and looks in for the sign.
You're right, dude.
And that's what bothers me about these rule changes, that they're thinking too much about who they're trying to cater to and not enough about the actual in-game strategy and mindset of these players.
Well, here, we'll wrap it up on this because I want to make this point. I think it's an excellent point. We love baseball, so we don't really see, could the games be quicker, blah, blah, blah. Sure, everybody can say, but they're doing these things to cater to people that don't watch baseball or might watch 10 games a year, right? That's what they're doing. The NBA, to their credit, do not care about what people that don't watch basketball think about their product. Because to me, somebody that doesn't watch basketball, it's insanely boring watching the last 5 minutes of a game, foul, free throw, foul, free throw, foul, free throw, when you can get through the first They play an hour, right?
48 minutes.
48 minutes. They play 48 minutes. You can get through the first 43 minutes of an NBA game in like an hour and 20 minutes. And then the last 5 minutes take an hour because even when you're down 10, I got to
hack a shack,
foul, free throw, foul, free throw. That's boring to me. And you know what? The NBA doesn't care that I think it's boring because they don't care about what people that don't watch their product think. And then here's Major League Baseball. Oh, well, we got to do all this shit for people that don't even watch this. And now Guy X that might watch 10 games a year, what is he going to watch, 11 now? You think it's really going to make him a bigger fan of baseball?
I'm gonna just finish my point with this. And we're going to throw our buddy Randy into this. Okay?
Who's
the
Randy?
one you talk shit to about me on social media without tagging me.
But you're such a triggered asshole that you went and found. He's like,
He fucking scoped that out.
Let's use Randy.
Scoped it
Let's
out.
use Randy. We'll let him know we used him in this show so he could take
Randy
a listen. Randy Natolios. Christian, do you love basketball? Do you watch basketball?
No.
What's Randy's favorite sport?
That would be hoops.
Okay. Why don't you watch basketball?
You want the long answer or the short answer?
Whatever you feel would suffice to answer my question.
My father wasn't a big fan of basketball, so I never really grew up watching it. And then after the Knicks had their run in the 90s, there was no really good basketball. And really, I never took a liking to a team.
Okay. Now let me ask you this. If you grew up playing basketball, learning the game, appreciating the game, would any of the penalties and fouls and all of that deter you from watching the sport that you grew up appreciating, loving, and playing your entire life?
Probably not. And that was to my point that the NBA doesn't care about what people that don't watch their sport think.
Right. And my point is...
And clearly the people that watch it must not bother them because they really don't do anything about it.
My point is there's nothing that would really take Randy away from the sport of basketball. Even if he says it would, it probably wouldn't because he appreciates it on a level that we could never understand. And the same thing goes for baseball. We appreciate the sport. People are not just going to all of a sudden start watching a game because it's a quicker paced, more entertaining sport. Like you said, maybe 10, 11 games they'll start watching more a year, but they're never going to be the fan that you want to attract.
Do you think that guy even knows about these new rules?
That was the point when you cut me off before because I was, rambling a little bit. They're not even going to No. When does a casual baseball fan actually watch a game? When he decides to go get a drink with a couple of his buddies and it's on, 4 different screens, or when that team in your area is really good and makes the playoffs. That's it. Do you think they're going to know what's happening that a pitcher can now only... Oh, guys, listen, I fucking hate baseball. It's so slow, but guess what? The pitcher has to face at least 3 batters now. I'm a fan. No, that's not how it works. So why are we doing those things? Why? It doesn't.
Because we have a commissioner that hates his own sport.
I hate him. I hate his guts. I really do. But again, I'll save that true, pure emotion for my show.
All right, let's wrap up the show here because it's approaching on a dangerously long territory. It's probably...
Lord of the Rings level.
Yeah, so we want to thank everybody who stuck with us here for this extra long episode. But hey, you know what? We did an AL East preview. We had a little injury stuff to talk about, new rules. So it's not like we filled it up with a bunch of nonsense.
And we're only 12. We're less than 2 weeks away from opening day.
Yeah, when you...
12 days, right?
It's crazy. When this pod drops on Monday morning, we'll be what?
10 days.
10 days out. Something, we're getting there.
It's back.
And yesterday really felt like a spring day. It was probably about 70 here. So
very nice.
It was 73.
I liked it.
I think.
It was crazy. So thank you.
It was pretty good.
I want to thank you if you're crazy enough to stick out this entire episode. Thank Joe Rivera for spending a good chunk of his day with us. Probably really came close to 2 hours from when we were supposed to call him to when I told him we were going to call him to the fact that we couldn't call him.
And I don't know why we continue to forget to do this, but please forget to do this in the beginning of the show. Please leave us a rating and review if you're a fan of the show. If you don't like the show, don't leave us a rating and review.
And just
thank you very much.
Just shove it up your ass. Write it down on a piece of paper and shove it up your ass.
Right.
Wow.
And then you know what? Reach out to us and bash us personally. I would absolutely love it.
And then when I clown shoes you like Jay and Silent Bob, you won't wonder why.
Right.
Okay?
Uh-huh.
Let's hear from our sponsor, and then I'll say goodbye.
Deal.
Hey, have you heard about baseballism? A premium lifestyle apparel brand focusing on the class, tradition, and history of baseball. You can find everything from accessories such as phone cases and watches to your next favorite baseball tee. Whether you're a player or just a fan of the game, Baseballism has something for everyone. They also have multiple stores, including one in Cooperstown, home of the Baseball Hall of Fame. Hop online to baseballism.com and check out all they have to offer. Just be sure to use promo code NYYST at checkout for 15% off your entire order. Baseballism, a brand built for love of the game.
All right, thank you to baseballism.com for sponsoring the show. Definitely check them out. NYYST, the code will save you 15% or more on your car insurance.
That's pretty good. That was so natural that I didn't even until you stopped, I didn't even think about it.
All right, so definitely go to baseballism.com. Use the code NYYST for 15% off. It will not help you save money on your car insurance, but will help you save money on some cool baseball merchandise. Follow us on Twitter at NYY Sports Talk. Follow Joe Rivera, our guest today, on Twitter at Joe Rivera SN. Stat Guy Rye.
Go Yanks.
Chris. Say goodbye.